Based on the available recap context, Season 3, Episode 4 of Euphoria, titled Kitty Likes to Dance, feels less like a single scene and more like an accelerant, a place where consequences arrive and characters are forced to choose who they are when everything they thought anchored them is stripped away. We open with Rue. Recaps report she's arrested, and that arrest is not a closing moment, but an opening. She becomes a snitch. That pivot from addict and survivor to someone bargaining with law enforcement reframes her identity. Rue has always been a study in contradictions. Brilliant, unreliable, self-sabotaging, and fiercely loyal. In this episode, the plot choice to have her make a risky deal with Alamo's world and to cooperate with authorities refracts those contradictions through the language of control. Becoming a snitch is often framed as betrayal or cowardice, but here, based on critics' coverage, it reads more like the last resort of someone who's lost other levers of power. Rue's agency is compromised by arrest, and the deal offered to her draws her deeper into a world that both controls and profits from her dependence. That tension, agency traded for survival, is a classic Euphoria move. The show stages self-destruction not as a single impulsive act, but as a ledger of small, coerced compromises. Parallel to Rue is the cascade around Cassie and Nate. Multiple recaps say Cassie leaves Nate. Nate's business collapses while Cassie's business takes off. That flip, the partner falling apart as the once subordinate rises, is a sustained study of identity under pressure. Cassie's turn toward success, framed in reviews as risky and fame adjacent, asks, does reclaiming control require abandoning a previous self? For Cassie, based on the recaps, success comes with a cost. Maddie even gives Cassie a mission. The mission imagery is important because it suggests agency that is still mediated by others, Maddie's influence, public attention, and possibly the moral compromises of business in this world. Nate's collapse, by contrast, is an unraveling of a persona built on dominance. Multiple sources highlight the collapse of his enterprise. The episode seems to document the consequences of choices he earlier made to perpetuate control. Watching power erode is part of the episode's larger meditation. Control seldom disappears all at once. It leaks through legal jeopardy, business failure, and interpersonal betrayal, until the person left is someone else entirely. There's also the episode's title and its centerpiece, Kitty, a stripper Alamo calls Kitty, who is noted as being from Kansas. That line, Kitty likes to dance, exit is both literal and metaphoric in the recaps. Screen Rant and other coverage flagged the episode's R-rated stripper scene controversy, and reviewers described the episode as dialing up sex, drugs, and money horrors. The tableau of performance, exoticization, and small-town origin, Kansas, becomes a condensed symbol, identity packaged for consumption. Kitty as a figure implies the show's ongoing interrogation of how bodies and identities are curated and sold, and how that curation can be both an assertion of self and an erosive trade-off. Laurie's gang, taking revenge for Paladin's murder, reported in multiple recaps, externalizes the theme of consequence into a violent stake. This isn't just about individual self-destruction. It's about a world that responds often brutally to the ripples of earlier choices. Violence as consequence reframes earlier acts of control, alliances, betrayals, profit-making, as debts that will be collected, sometimes by those who were previously peripheral. If we step back, the episode's major theme, called out in several reviews, is consequences. The aesthetic choices critics describe, sex, money, horror, serve a thesis. When identity is performative and control is illusory, the only constant is consequence. The characters attempt to recreate themselves, Cassie through business, Rue through bargaining, Kitty through performance, and each attempt intersects with forces beyond their control. Law enforcement, criminal patrons, public opinion, and retaliatory violence. This intersection is where self-destruction lives. The recaps suggest the show doesn't moralize, it catalogs. Characters oscillate between agency and coercion, and the image that lingers is of people making slim trades to preserve a fragile present, often sacrificing parts of themselves. Rue's snitching is the most explicit example. Pressurized by arrest, she chooses survival by implicating others, a move that will alter how she sees herself and how the world sees her. From a cinematic standpoint, reviews note Zendaya's performance as a stabilizing force amid an episode that sometimes struggles to find its footing. That critique is useful for the video essay. Performance can become the interpretive lens through which we judge structural show choices. If the episode's composition tilts towards spectacle, sex, money, and visceral consequence, then actors' subtle work becomes the moral and emotional anchor. So, what does control mean here? It's not simply possession, it's negotiation. The episode, on the evidence of recaps, stages control as a currency exchanged in bad faith. Alamo's deal, law enforcement's leverage, Maddie's missions, Cassie's career opportunities, Nate's collapsing empire, they're all forms of transaction. And the cost is identity. To gain safety, fame, or power, characters cede pieces of themselves, and the accumulation of those seedings shapes self-destruction. That is why the episode's conclusion, Laurie's gang exacting revenge, is narratively satisfying and thematically instructive. Consequence catches up and compels accountability outside of the systems the characters try to trust. It also underscores the show's bleak moral ecology. There are always collectors, visible or invisible, who will convert the currency of your choices into outcomes you cannot undo. In closing, based on available recaps, Kitty Likes to Dance is an episode about the slow arithmetic of being a person under pressure. It refuses the neat moral lessons in favor of messy, often ugly transactions where identity and control are both tools and casualties. For viewers, the episode asks a difficult question. When everything you value is exchangeable, what do you keep? And at what point does keeping mean becoming someone you no longer recognize? This reading is built from the recaps and reviews provided. For the video, use short, clearly credited clips and stills to illustrate the moments referenced. Rue's arrest and deal, Cassie and Nate's fallout, references to Kitty as a performer, and the episode's closing act of revenge. Keep narration analytical and personal. Let performance and consequence be the spine of the argument.